I have had it with this motherfucking Dracula on this motherfucking boat.
Guys, Dracula was on a boat.
Yes, he was.
Oh, man.
And it could have been better.
It opens the same way as Waterworld.
It does.
Oceans are now a battlefield. Dracula's on a boat.
Yeah. So, look, you know us. Whenever we review movies, we're not going to just shit on it if we didn't like it. We're trying to be constructive, trying to talk about things that work and didn't work, even if we don't like a film, because making a movie is one of the hardest things to do on planet Earth. We're not going to sit here and just be bashful and rude, but we are going to try to be constructive and talk about things we didn't like and why things didn't work for us.
Now, why you haven't heard this preface in our other reviews is because we did not like this movie.
We did not like this movie. And we were both amped. Like,
I was very excited.
We were very excited for the movie. And look,
I love a good creature feature.
Yes. And I'll start with some positives on the movie. The set of the boat is very well done. I said it in like the out of the theater, like the set was cool, but like I wasn't just saying that. Like it is nice.
They built like the actual Demeter, and you could feel that sort of realism as opposed to just green screen and half sets. Yeah.
Yes. And also the lead performance of Corey Hawkins and the guy who played the captain, his real name is leaving me.
Liam Cunningham from Game of Thrones.
Both did great.
Davros. They did good with what they had.
Yes. And also the creature design for Dracula I thoroughly enjoyed.
It went back to the old school, like kind of Nosferatu style.
Yeah.
You said that it was CG. You said that it was practical.
I thought it was.
Shots. I thought on the whole it kind of looked CGI. If it was practical, they added a ton of touch-ups in post, which made it look not as real.
Probably.
To me, at least.
I'm pretty sure of the practicalness, like whenever he's hiding in like corners, and I'm pretty sure that's a suit. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought it was a practical suit.
That's possible.
Yeah. And I like the last 5 minutes. But the way that it was presented and edited previously did kind of undercut the last 5 minutes, but it was cool. So anyway, let's kind of get into it. So Dracula's on a boat. Infamously, in a chapter of the Dracula book, it talks about him coming over on the Demeter, and this is that movie. It's a fabulous idea for a movie.
Yeah, it's one chapter, and basically it's told through the captain's logs, which you kind of get narrations throughout this movie, and the ship, you find out at the end of the chapter, just arrives in its port, and it's derelict. It's abandoned. There's nothing on it.
Yeah, and in the film, it bookends with the ship arriving.
Yeah, and
the opening is actually kind of cool. Like when they find the captain's log, and it's like, "May God be with you," because he's abandoned the Demeter. Like I was like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, like the beginning of the movie set up everything to be very good.
And so where the issues come with the movie come in. Where it doesn't really work for me is on a technical level, the setup and payoff of the scares didn't work at all for me. And that the setups were too drawn out to the point where instead of maintaining suspense, it would drain. And so normally, like, if you're going to do a jump scare, you want to build up and then bam, like get somebody. But if you don't want to go the jump scare route, then you can just build suspense through a scene and hold that suspense, keep the audience on their toes, keep you on the edge of your seat. And whenever they would try to do those sequences, about halfway through the sequence, I would lose suspense. I'm like, all right, I'm not interested in what I'm seeing anymore. And I think that was a fault of the movie. I think there were a couple weak performances that were fault of the movie. However, David Dastmalchian always shows up and kills it. I love David Dastmalchian.
He was good.
His character was annoying, but he was good. He kept just being like, we don't know what it is. Not a man.
Yeah.
But they introduced a character who had come over with Dracula for him to his plan was to kind of feed on her. This is a full spoiler review, by the way. I don't know if we mentioned that. Yeah, it's early. This character, I understand the idea of the character, but I think you could have removed the character and the movie could have benefited from it.
Yeah.
Mostly because the way they used the character was to just interject exposition and try to create some sort of dynamic with their lead character, but it wasn't really working. They didn't really have on-screen chemistry at all. And when that character meets their demise, I didn't feel anything.
Well, also, like, just the concept of it being like the 1800s. They're on the ship and they find this woman, and back then it was like a woman on ship is bad luck, and like all that stuff. So basically, she was used as like this device of like, we don't know what this is, and they're like, clearly it's the woman, and you're like, what?
Yeah, like what? I don't need this in the movie. And also, another thing that didn't really work for me was a lot of the script, and not even just dialogue, like sequence of events. Like almost, it feels like halfway through the movie, you find out that Sun kills the vampire. Like they see it happen to someone who's been turned on the ship, and that was a bit inconsistent, by the way. But you know, if the movie was great, that's something you can look past. They get burned. They find out where Dracula sleeps. And at no point did it occur to them, let's take the thing he sleeps in, put it on the deck of the ship while he's sleeping, so that in the morning we can crack that bitch open and burn him. Like, there were so many different things. And they're on the ship for weeks. Like, the captain's log will jump from like July 12th to like July 18th. And it's like, have you been looking on the ship for like 6 days and you can't find this motherfucker? Like, what?
That, and just the whole concept of like they're only trying to catch him at night. Now, I know he comes out at night, but like, it's kind of just the way the movie's cut makes it seem like they do nothing all day. Yeah. And then at night they're like, oh, I guess there's an axe. Yeah. Let me go see if I can find this thing. And it's like, what were you doing just all day?
Yeah. And granted, before they knew that the sun could hurt it. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. Right? Once you find that out, look for him in the day. Like,
yeah,
you know,
do
like
anything.
Yeah. And it just like, that was annoying.
And just the whole concept of every night Dracula would pick off one person. And in the movie, they explain that as him rationing. Yet he develops wings. So if he just eats more people and gets more powerful, he would just get the wings and fly to shore very, very easily. Yeah. And I assume that Dracula knows this. Yeah. Because he's not a dumb creature.
Yeah. Yeah. And
he's a dark creature of the night.
And also, you brought up a point when we watched the film too, of there was a situation where they come up with a plan to defeat Dracula. They don't know he has wings. And the plan is very contingent on him not being able to fly. Yeah. And when he starts flying, they keep shouting, like, stick to the plan. And it's like, no, new plan.
do not flying. Do that in the slightest.
Yeah, yeah.
And also, they try to give the characters a lot of motivations that were very broad and general. Like, I understand... Like, I loved the concept with the captain of, like, he has his grandson. Clearly, the grandson's parents have since passed, and he is watching the boy. And he sets up, he's like, this is my last voyage on the Demeter. Yeah. I'm going to live in the countryside. He's going to go get an education, like, all this stuff. And I'm like, cool, I love that. Especially because it kind of, you learn that early on, and you're like, okay, that's building a stake. Yeah. And then the lead character, Corey Hawkins, just wants to try to make the world make sense. Yeah. Which is a bunch of existentialism that I don't need in the Dracula movie, especially when it's just like I didn't buy that as a motivation.
Yeah. I guess you could say they built up stakes only to drive them through the heart.
Heyo.
Let's go. No, but I see what you're saying, and I agree. And, you know, and the other characters were cannon fodder, really.
Yeah. And I wish they kind of explored David Dastmalchian more of like, no, I am saving this ship. It was promised to me.
Yeah,
like,
and I did like that dynamic of like when he finds out that he's going to be the new captain, he gets very shitty about, you know,
everything about the ship.
Yeah.
And just like them flooding the boat, and it's like like that was the plan and everything. And above all else, it just wasn't entertaining. Yeah, it was just kind of.
The whole movie, flat. I was waiting for it to grab me, and it never did.
Yeah, I was just kind of watching things happen, and then you see Dracula, but they didn't try to reinvent the wheel with Dracula. Like, it was just your basic creature feature, but with all the story issues and everything, it just kind of came out flat, which was a little disappointing.
Yeah, and earlier when I said, like, the last 5 minutes were my favorite part, but it wasn't set up very well, what I mean is they foreshadow early in the movie, like, you find Dracula's cane, which was a cool scene. Yeah. And then at the end of the movie, Corey Hawkins is on land, and he's kind of narrating that he's going to find this guy. And then you see the cane, and he's there. Great scene. However, there's so many small fixes that could have made that a great scene. And one of them is don't show us that Dracula survived. We know he survived, but don't show us. Because literally, he dies in a very slow motion, stupid way, by the way. He dies in a very slow motion, stupid way. And then there's an insert of cutting to him just like throwing the stake off of him and surviving. And it's like, don't show me that. Like, make me think like you did something, you know? And then you could have had Corey Hawkins like in the bar bragging, like, we killed that thing. I'm the only survivor. I'm bad as fuck. Now the world makes sense. I was put on this earth to kill that bitch. You know, you could do whatever you wanted there. And then Kane, he's alive. Like, now his whole earth is shattered. And I feel like the concept of that scene I really enjoyed, but it wasn't executed as well as it could have been. It's kind of the story of the whole movie. Wasn't executed as well as it could have been. I
would have just liked to see them play with expectations a little bit, because obviously this is a chapter in the middle of Dracula book. You know that Dracula most likely survives. I wish they kind of had toyed with that, like, oh, maybe we're going to do like a rewrite of this, like a different version. One thing that did get me, and this is not necessarily a compliment to the movie, but kind of playing with that expectations, they set up the ship was derelict. In my mind, that just means no survivors. So the whole movie, I'm like, they're all going to die. Yeah. And they didn't, which I was like, okay, interesting take. But then it kind of, like you said, just sort of falls. But I thought that was like, it's kind of like when you're watching Rogue One. Yes. You kind of know all these characters are going to meet their fate, but you still felt like that connection to those characters. Like that whole third act works very well for me in Rogue One. And I wish that it kind of built to that sort of emotional level. Yeah.
No, I see what you mean.
But I mean, how much emotion do you really want from a Dracula boat movie? That's also the thing.
Like, yeah. And that stuff could have been more forgiven if the setup and payoff of the kills and the scares were better. And they just weren't.
Yeah, because then you just write it off as a...
Yeah, like, oh, it was fun. You know?
Gory horror creature.
Yeah. So, it was disappointing, but I hope the comments we made were constructive and we're not trying to dog anybody. I'm going to watch more stuff this filmmaker makes. I'm going to watch more stuff that these actors are in. You know, I love movies and I love making movies.
I love David Dastmalchian.
Yes, and, you know, we're always going to support. But this film did not particularly work for us. But what did you think? Did you love the film? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Please let us know in the comments below. And that'll be it on this review, guys, and we will see you on the next one.